Hello and welcome to Long and Distant Podcast with me, Zach Eaton, and the skipper, Jonathan Nimmo, for episode 69 of our podcast. And feel free to crack some jokes in the comments on Twitter and all of that jazz if you wish to do so.
You're immature enough to do that, because we are. So we've done it just before we hit record. So
we got it all out of the way. We got it all out of the way before we started recording. But yes, welcome. And we've got we've got a special episode, another one of Nimmo's interviews with, tell us a little bit about the guest. I'm quite excited to.
This is a very exciting one. I am talking to Melissa Story, who is a 21-year-old. She's a cricket player, commentator. She does pretty much everything. She is possibly the person who is most cricket nuts as we are. I think she rivals our levels of insanity on cricket, which is great. But she is, she's captain of her local team, which we get into, and they've just won the league, which is great. And she has this summer got into commentating, which is predominantly what we're talking about. It's a bit of a commentator special, as we do occasionally. But she also just made her debut on Test Match Special, the radio commentary on BBC Radio, which is, as I said, a national institution. And she has set the record, or we believe she set the record. The TMS researchers believe that she is the youngest ever commentator on TMS, which is amazing. And again, we get into a little bit of that and how that came about, her route into commentary, which was not a planned one for her, which is going to be an interesting one to see what she's got to say about that. But yeah, and just we talk all things cricket, really. So yeah,
love it.
She's an excellent guest, and I think everyone's going to really enjoy this. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like an amazing conversation, and a cricketer with a bright future ahead in either commentating or playing as well, which is always
definitely
messy.
Yeah, definitely, and yes,
we can't strike either very well. So
yeah, she's as enthusiastic as we are, but where we don't have any sort of talent for anything really. Let's be honest. She's got both of our talents, quantities, and just taken them and run with them, and yeah. So yeah, she's got it all, whereas we just occasionally remember to hit record on some of our conversations and ramble on about cricket every now and again. So yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like she should be the one with the cricket podcast rather than us, but hey, there you go. That's life. It's a strange world we live in, but we are very, very pleased to have her as guest. And shall we pass over and get into that, and then we'll come back at the end and have a quick chat and say bye to everyone, really.
Sounds amazing. Let's have a listen.
Okay, so here it is. Here is my interview with Melissa Story. Well, I am extremely delighted to be joined by Melissa Story, who you've got a whole raft, despite extremely young age, you've got a whole raft of accolades to be introduced by. You are, I believe, Hursley Park Cricket Club captain, league-winning cricket club captain, so congratulations on that. And debutant on commentator on TMS, and from what I heard, and I'm going to entirely trust TMS's research on this, but you're the youngest ever commentator on TMS. Is that right?
Yes, I mean, we're not 100% sure yet. I think it was actually the day before when I was doing the Rachel Hayhoe Flint final. Someone did come up to me and he had heard about it and gone, I have a slight suspicion you are the youngest. And I actually saw him the next day, and just I think half an hour before I went on air, he was like, you are the youngest, no pressure. And I was like, brilliant, thank you so much. As you said, it's a nice little accolade to put on the side there, a little record under the belt almost.
Definitely, and up there with some esteemed names in cricket commentary. Christopher Martin Jenkins, we believe you have beaten the record of, so that's not a bad way to start your career in commentating, is it?
Oh, I don't say that. I mean, a lot of pressure to live up to. But yeah, just being able to, some of the people I've had the chance to meet this summer, and especially at that TMS game, it was incredible. I don't think I'd ever imagined a version of my life where I would be sat in the same room as those kind of people. So, I mean, now saying that I can work, I work with them, that's absolutely mental to me. I'm not sure it's quite settled in yet.
Well, and I have to say, you were fantastic, and you've slotted in so perfectly, and we will get full in-depth into what that was like, because, I'm absolutely jealous and definitely want to know all about it and how it was and what the goings on behind the scenes are. But yeah, you were absolutely brilliant, and you just slotted in and just seemed to be part of the family immediately, which was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
But let's sort of rewind a little bit before we start getting into that, and go back to sort of, well, your journey into cricket, I guess, and what got you started and what got you interested in cricket, and how did you begin your journey?
I think the biggest influence is my family is just one of those cricket families. I think my dad, he's been playing since he was a child as well, and every Saturday me and my sister would be at the club, would be in the nets just throwing the ball around, figuring things out. I mean, I think my mum was even the scorer and sometimes played if they were short as well. So there was cricket on the radio, cricket on the TV. Every family function, wedding would always end up playing a cricket game. I think at my auntie's wedding I was a bridesmaid and we were playing a game of cricket, and I was so desperate not to be run out, I went and did a full length dive and have permanently stained my bridesmaid dress with grass stains, but I wasn't run out.
Well, that's all that matters really. In the grand scheme of things, that is the key bit of information, isn't it? So
I guess it was inevitable that I was going to get into sport, and my sister, she played for a few years as well, but I guess kind of faded out in that age where, especially in women's, I think you either progress on or you completely stop. But yeah, I wouldn't be in the place I am now without my dad, to be honest. He's been that pushing force to just be like, let's just keep going, trying, even the bits where it gets a bit harder, you have a bit of a slump, just keep going. And I think my life would be so boring. I always joke that it's my one personality trait is liking cricket. When I meet new people, I'm like, I'm sorry, but there is nothing behind that. I mean, even when I was younger, I think England was playing in the UAE for a test match, and I went and stayed up all night and slept during the day just to watch, I think, when Alistair Cook got that 200 off about 1,000 balls, and I somehow stayed up to watch it, and I was like, this is not normal 14, 15 years behaviour. But yeah, that's it. Everything in the universe was telling me to go towards cricket.
Excellent. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As somebody with a definite reputation for basically my one topic of conversation is cricket, I mean, I will meet new people and they're like, you're the cricket person. I'm like, yes, that's me. I'll take that. Absolutely. My reputation precedes me. There's nothing wrong with that being your personality trait in the slightest. So that's great. So, and I guess from there you went on to University of Southampton, where you were involved in the cricket team there as well.
Yeah, so my first main team was Wiltshire, which is where I am at the moment, kind of based. There I went from under 11s all the way up to women's, and they were so responsible for lots of my development. Then I somehow went towards Southampton. I think when I was still at Wiltshire, I got to trial for the Seven Vipers Academy, and I was in that for 2-3 years, which kind of shuffled my base over to Southampton, and then I guess facilitated my move from Wiltshire to Hampshire, which Wiltshire, they operate in the Div 3 and Hampshire had just gone up to Div 1. So I kind of saw it as a natural progression to move over there. And consequently, actually, University of Southampton wasn't my first choice. I wanted to go to Leeds. Most of my family are from Yorkshire. There was a good cricket set up there. And when I found out I got into Southampton, I was actually really disappointed at first. But I mean, it worked out well for Hampshire. And as you mentioned, the University of Southampton ladies, I think that would probably be the thing I'm proudest of in cricket, weirdly enough, because when I joined that team in my first year, there was 11 of us. And when I left, I got to be team captain in my second year, president in my third year, and there was 42 members. And actually, the bun fight's going on for this year today, and I've been kind of asking them, how's it going? How many have signed up? And so many girls have signed up to the club already this year, which is just fantastic news.
I mean, that's amazing, and that's fantastic achievement for you to have started that growth and development and see that go on from there. So, was it how did you do that? Was it just your natural enthusiasm for the game? Is that what it was, or is it a sign of the game growing in women's game in particular growing at the same time? Is it just kind of married up nicely?
I think there was a few factors. I mean, the England ladies win in the World Cup, that was quite a big thing. So I remember when we were trying to advertise our society, we were like, did you watch that? And a lot of people did, and actually even the men's final as well. A lot of people were like, oh yeah, my mum and dad put it on in the background. I got to see that, and that brought quite a few in. Some were brought in. I mean, we've got such a fantastic coach. He coaches the Hampshire Disability team as well, Graham Dodsworth, and he does all of our uni girls stuff, and he is just the loveliest, funniest man on earth. So I think as soon as people do one training session with him, they're just drawn back. And then our final tactic was, even if you don't know cricket or you can't play cricket, we drink a lot. So come along and do that. And then the cricket will just follow naturally after that. So as long as we keep pursuing those tactics, and hopefully the uni will just keep growing. And I mean, we've got some names with our setup this year. Charlie Dean, obviously, who made her England debut, she plays for the university team when she can. And obviously, it's a great advocate. And actually, Ella McCacken, who also plays for the Southern Vipers, has just joined Southampton. So yeah, it's a strong team being put out this year. I'm very glad I'm not playing against them, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's it. And it's such a great. There's so many really great stories that have come out over this summer in particular, and yeah, we will get into talking about the 100 in a little bit, and yeah, it just the way that the great game has grown and progressed over the last 12, 18 months, which is crazy given the fact that it has been COVID and everything as well, has been fantastic. But yeah, there's been some great progress. And as you say, the women's team and the women's, England World Cup wins and things have been, really good and hopefully lots of growth around cricket. So that's fantastic. But let's go to switch slightly into the commentary side of things. So how did you start getting involved in the commentating side of things? Because that's been quite a rise for you again. That's really, really quick and, into getting into TMS commentary. So how did that start? I
mean, it was an absolute whirlwind. At the start of the summer, I was basically lining up my cleaning job, which I did in 2020, ready to take that on. And I got a message actually from Charlotte Taylor of the Seven Vipers and Emily Windsor, who also does the commentary in Vipers. And they're actually usually commentators on the side, but because of the Vipers and the Rachel Hayhoe Flint and Charlotte Edwards Cup, they wanted someone else to kind of step into the box, another female voice, for the games they couldn't do. So first up, they literally just said, just come in for this one game. We can't promise anything, especially if you're rubbish. And yeah, so I got to do it with Phil Green, who's my manager at Hursley Park. So that was so much fun. And I guess, it was complete luck. I feel so grateful and feel like all my ducks in the past have built up to this moment of good luck. And yeah, since then they kind of went, okay, let's give you a few more trials on the women's games to begin with. Because BBC Solent, who I owe everything to, they do such a good job with the women's game. I think they're the only local radio who cover every single women's game. Even if there's a men's game on at the same day, they will find a way to get the team out there, which is fantastic. And they've also brought in Gemma Green as well. I guess, especially on the women's games, they like a female voice, which is completely understandable. We know the players a bit more. It's an entirely different ball game in some respects. And yeah, I just expected for just a few women's games across the year. And then Kevin James, who runs it all, kind of asked me and was like, look, do you fancy doing a couple men's games? We'll set you up with a day in the county championship, which I was so excited for, and a T20 Blast game as well, which he did kind of say, look, this one's going to be quite a challenge. The county championship, I love the longer format. I was so excited, and getting to do stuff with the Surrey commentator Mark Church, he's a delight, and I learnt so much just from those days, because I guess in the longer form it's just a conversation. You can probably already tell that I can chat for England by now once I get going. But yeah, the men's T20 was a bit of a slap to the face. Suddenly the pace, the whole game just went in. Yeah, it was a shock to the system, and I guess it's just gone from there. Every away commentator I meet, at the end of it, I kind of go, look, what can I do to improve? Is there any things which were good or bad? And I'm probably, bothering them quite a lot, but I'm just desperate to keep improving. And I think it was when Hampshire just sealed through to the qualifiers, Kev kind of messaged me and was like, that's me and you, we've got to go do this now. And I mean, I've never been to Trent Bridge before, but I think that game's probably the highlight of my season in terms of all the games. But yeah, it's been crazy, and I, let alone, wouldn't have expected TMS at the end of it.
Yeah, well, quite the icing on the cake, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask there about how it sounds as if it was just kind of a natural talent and ability, and the fact that you can talk about cricket, which is a great thing. But what are the things that what are the tips that you have got from some of those other commentators, and what are the things that you've worked on? I was going to say in your long career in commentating, as it has been.
Those good 4 months. I mean, one thing, like certain bits of intrinsic kind of feedback I do is I do like to bring like quite quirky stats and sometimes to the game. I like doing research, so this was perfect for me. I think I've mentioned Air once, but in year 6 I did an entire project based on the previous Ashes series from like the 50s onwards. So I always knew that I could bring that dimension in. But for example, Mark Church, he said, it seems, basic stuff, but it's like the people you are talking to on the radio, they want to be at the game, but they can't be. You've got to make it feel as if they are sat in the audience right there. Describe everything you can see. Describe the field, describe what the bowler looks like, and just bring this picture to life. And, that's the first moment I was like, wow, almost like a Henry Blofeld kind of, you've got to just paint this scene in front of everyone listening. So I just started practicing even on when the cricket was on the TV. I was looking in the crowd going, what can I speak about? What's around me at the ground? And I think Emily Windsor also gave me a good bit of advice actually when we met up, which was once you've commentated the delivery and the ball, go over it and describe exactly what happened afterwards, again, which just really paints in detail, I guess. The scene, other tips have been more slightly boring ones. For example, get a bit better at identifying the players, because I'm absolutely fine in the women's game because ponytails make such a difference. As soon as you get in the men's game and everyone's got the exact same haircut, I was clueless. So I've had to improve a bit better at that. And I mean, even a bit of advice I got on TMS from that one game. I got to chat to Daniel Norcross at the end, and he was giving me some really good tips about transitions and handovers, which I didn't think I'd really ever have to think about at this stage.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And it sounds like you've had some real good tips and advice. And I have to say that it is that there's something special about sort of radio commentary in particular, isn't there, in terms of it is that picture letting people know, and it's so often people's, certainly potentially older generation than yourself, in terms of how we first got into cricket, is because there wasn't cricket on TV in the same way that they see that, particularly this summer there's been a lot more, but there hasn't been previously. So that radio commentary has really been sort of people's first experience of cricket, I guess, and it is, and people have such a place in their hearts with TMS in particular, but in general, just cricket, radio and cricket, and it's great to be involved in that, I guess. Yeah.
One of my biggest family trait is we watch the cricket, but we turn down the Sky and put up the radio, which I'm sure many people do that around the country. As you say, it's got radio commentary, just hits different.
It is, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad I'm not alone in doing that. So I'm always liking hearing other people do that as well, because people do look at me strange if they're not into cricket. Like, why are you doing that? I was like, no, there's something you'll see. It's something special about it. So was it something that you'd always thought about commentating? Was that an avenue you'd want to explore, or was it just the opportunity came up and you jumped at it?
Yeah, I mean, I've always joked around as a kid that we would commentate in the car and stuff, but I'd never even considered media or broadcasting. I actually, a few months before, had just sorted out my pathway to becoming a solicitor, which is what I want to do predominantly. So when they suddenly popped up 2 months later, I was like, oh, okay, there's a bit of a crossroads here. But yeah, as you said, I just was like, this is an unmissable opportunity. And at the end of the day, I would be spending my weekends anyway watching cricket most likely. So the least I can do is have a bit of a laugh with people and just have a go at a new skill. And I'm so glad I did.
Yeah, excellent. So for some, well, for many people, I think, what they won't quite know what the preparation and the research that goes into commentating. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of you have to do in terms of when you're preparing for a game?
Absolutely. Obviously, depending on the format, there's some things you do for every game. look at the team sheets, kind of provisionally look at the squad, which 14-man squads usually announced the day before. So you'll write down all the names and numbers, and as you get there and the team's announced, you kind of cross out, write down the batting order. That's a pretty basic one. For me, I like to look up and each game update the batting averages, bowling averages, look at the tables before the cricket game. And just in general, actually, I originally set up this new cricket account on Twitter just to follow as many analysts and commentators as possible and just kind of actually get, I guess, cricketing news as well and what's relevant, because especially in county championship, I'll write down probably about 4 pages of, conversation topics or questions to ask people. And my favourite one is, especially in county championship, ways to try and get the listener almost involved. And I think that worked really well in a couple games, actually. One was Hampshire versus Yorkshire in a 4-day game. Apparently that was some of the most interaction they've ever got from people listening, because we were going on northern southern stereotypes, which of course endless opportunities. I think I gained a few Yorkshire friends in that. Other one, like in the north, I think it was Nottinghamshire game, we had someone tweet in about a random encounter with James Tomlinson, the Hampshire ex-fast bowler, and suddenly we had people tweeting in saying what their random meetings with cricketers were, which I think culminated in someone using the urinal between Michael Atherton and Nasser Hussain. So it was wonderful stuff like that. And yeah, it's prep. It's realising, I guess, what your format is. If it's T20, I'll try and write down more snappier things to say in between overs when I'm doing that summary role. But for county championship, yeah, it's a bit more prep, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's it. And it is very different. And is that quite a daunting thing when you've got a long period, you've got a full day's worth of play, and you don't know what's going to happen in there. You don't know what rain delays you might have or what anything else. How much can you prepare for things like that and for big, long gaps? Or do you just have to kind of go with it and see what happens and experience it and think on your feet, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is thinking on the feet. I'm very much a person who loves to prepare and be organised, but sometimes something will happen and you'll just look at the pages in front of you and go, I've got nothing of relevance now. So I've just got to, as you say, think on your feet and kind of think up topics on the spot. County Championship's usually good for that. But our pattern is you'll be on for an hour, then you'll get half an hour break. So when I do, I'm usually off to begin with. So I'll just be frantically looking and going, right. I mean, I remember, I think one game I had prepared all these interesting topics, and then the Nottinghamshire batters lost 4 wickets within 5 overs and everything disappeared, which I had. So that was quite an interesting one. Yeah.
I feel you're owed an apology from Nottinghamshire batters at that point, all that time wasted. They could have hung around a bit longer,
But yeah, sometimes it is just spontaneous, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a particularly challenging thing, or is it the hardest part of it for somebody who's thinking of going into it? What is the bit that you find most difficult in terms of commentating?
I guess the most difficult bit is just having to remind yourself not to change anything. You learn from watching others and listening to others, but actually you've got to go into it and bring something new to the table. And there's the benefits of when me and Kevin work together. We've got obviously the age difference, which usually creates a bit of a fun dynamic between us. But you've just got to bring a bit of your personality to the table. And that's actually what Kevin said to me before I went onto TMS. He went, just look at me in the eyes, do not change a thing. And I tried not to. I don't think I did. That's probably the hardest bit. You've just got to be authentic to yourself. If anyone's breaking through and you're progressing, then you're doing something right at the end of the day. So you've just got to stick to it and just keep improving, I guess. And as I mentioned, I think sometimes it's hard to ask people for feedback, but you've got to be open to criticism as well, because that's the way you'll get better. And listening, this is what I hate the most, listening back to commentaries. I can't stand my voice. I actually almost want to apologise for anyone for listening to me. That's how much I hate it. But a lot of the feedback I've got is you need to go back and listen to it in order to get better. So that's a nightmarish experience.
No, it's a really good tip though for anybody who is wanting to do, to get into commentary and things, listening back to yourself. I guess it's something that you have to get comfortable with and to try and, I don't know, hear how things are going and where to improve. So no, that's a really good tip. So you did mention there about TMS, we should get more in depth about that, because it really is a kind of a national institution, to be honest. And and you had a flawless debut and sounded like you fit in, absolutely perfectly. So just thinking, when you came on for your first stint about 10 overs into the game, I think.
Yeah.
So how were you feeling with that? Were you nervous, or were you just, once you get there, are you in the zone, or how was the build up to that?
I mean, to begin with, because I only found out I was going the day before, we were in Northant, so suddenly we had the excitement of the Southern Vipers winning, drove 2 hours back home, went straight to bed, had to leave at 6:30 in the morning to get to Canterbury the next day. So I think I was just really tired. And then I suddenly got there and they were like, oh, you're on at 10 overs. And that's when I just went, oh, bugger, almost in a way. And it was obviously a bit different, because with BBC Solent, we do 1 over of commentary, and then you almost have a bit of an over off when you become the summariser. With TMS, I was just the commentator, so for any distinction new for anyone listening, you will do the ball by ball stuff for every over. So I'd suddenly relax and go, oh, thank goodness, end of the over, and then, I'm on again. So that was, it was a big concentration thing. So my first stint, everyone was saying to me, you've just got to get through your first 5 overs. And I remember I was trying to write down stuff just to remember, and my hands were going all over the place. And luckily I had Alex Hartley next to me, who I think is probably one of the nicest people in cricket. I was so excited to meet her. I tried to play it quite cool, but when I got to sit next to her, I was like, oh, this is cool. And yeah, she was really funny. Isabel Esprit as well made me feel so welcome. Everyone made me feel so welcome. And suddenly after that first commentary stint, I just felt a bit more at ease. And I mean, I accidentally commentated an entire Nat Silver over calling her Kate Cross, but it happens to everyone. And I mean, it was crazy having obviously Phil as a complete stats man and scorer next to you, and that was something to adjust to. And then also having a massive Sky Sports screen to my left, which I don't think I looked at once, because I'm just not used to having a screen next to me. But yeah, the nerves definitely dissipated a bit across the game, and I think it's like with any kind of like interview, I guess, as well. You've got to change those nerves into excited nerves, and then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned you sort of started with Alex Hartley there, who absolutely just, I'm massively jealous of just for you getting to meet her, to be honest. That's absolutely obviously fellow podcaster, as well as player and commentator and everything else. But yeah, she and the rapport you seem to have with her, like, immediately was, it just felt really natural, and it seemed as though you'd been friends for a long time. But had you had a chance to chat beforehand before you went into that first stint, or was that literally just the kind of on-air chemistry that you had?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have too much time before. I showed up a bit later than everyone else, because there wasn't too much for me to do setting up or before the game started. But yeah, I mean, I think that's full credit to Alex. She is just one of those people who, I think, just would gel with anyone in an instant, and they were all, determined to make me feel comfortable. And yeah, she was just absolutely lovely, but it's just the funniest person. I was having to remind myself not to laugh too loudly, because I've got an awful laugh, and if it, I don't think TMS listeners would want to just be hearing that. But yeah, she was, deserves all the opportunities coming towards her. And I mean, I listened to the No Balls podcast, and that was great as well. But yeah, it was, meeting her was really fun. You say you were jealous. I had quite a few of my friends message me as well and go, I'm a bit jealous of this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, how did the TMS thing come about then? I realised we haven't actually touched on that. So yeah, was that just, you said it was only the day before, so how did that actually happen?
So I got a message from Alan Mountford, who's the TMS producer. We chatted just a couple times, I think, before, about quite small things. And he said that a commentator for the England game, they had to drop out for personal reasons, I think. So he was like, look, it's a dead rubber kind of game. There's no pressure, but do you fancy doing it? It's in Canterbury. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I mean, I wish I'd filled up my tank a bit more, because I had a full tank of petrol on Saturday, then drove to Northampton back and Canterbury and back, and now I've been stranded at my house for the last week. So it was worth not having any petrol now, I'll tell you that. So yeah, it was really quite a spur of the moment thing. But as soon as I was actually on air when I got the message through, and I completely forgot to commentate 2 balls right in front of me, so I was just going to Kev going, look what's just come through. It was one of the best moments ever.
I mean, the fact that it was only 2 balls is quite impressive, to be honest. That deserves a full 20 minutes of getting excited about. So that's amazing. And so I guess what are the plans for the future? What the next steps? Obviously, the season is kind of wrapping up here now. But yeah, what are the plans for next season? Are you thinking more commentary, more playing, or a mix of both and everything? Are you just taking it one bit at a time?
Definitely playing. I'll be looking to hopefully continue to captain Hursley Park. I absolutely loved the year captaining. It was the most stressful Sundays of my life, but it was very rewarding. And of course, you mentioned our league win, I think by 0.002% of a margin in the end. So there was some nice added stress at the end of the season. But yeah, I wouldn't change a thing. I love not having a single Sunday free from April to September. It's exactly how it should be. And yeah, hopefully just to continue with, predominantly BBC Solent. Not to, can't reveal any massive secrets from what goes behind the scenes at TMS or what I've heard, because there's nothing really confirmed. But Solent, I've become a diehard Hampshire fan. I can't even explain it. I feel so much just passion towards the team after this season. So hopefully we can continue to do some commentaries with me and Kev, because that would be great. It was so frustrating, of course, because they got into T20 finals day and then lost in that first semi, and then in the county championship just got within 1 wicket of winning it. But it could be their year next year. So I want to hopefully watch that progress. And same with the Southern Vipers. They're the team to beat in women's domestic cricket. So I feel quite honoured in a way that I get to commentate on that, and with a few of my friends in the squad as well. It's really, really, you feel proud when you're sat there commentating on them doing so well, and especially Charlie Dean in that England game. That was surreal.
Yeah, and that was fantastic. What a way to sort of introduce yourself to the nation for the most part, apart from those local players that would have known her. But yeah, that burst onto the scene, and that's hopefully long England career to come as well for her. But is there any other tips of people for the future that you think we should look out for and potentially coming onto the England scene at some point?
In the women's game, I can definitely have a bit more information there. Emma Lamb, she played in one England T20, I think, against New Zealand. But I've watched a few games of her playing and think she could definitely be a top order star for England in the future, absolutely. Emily Arlott, when she got called into the women's test squad, I think. She didn't play, but she's a tall, formidable bowler, and she gets some insane in-swing as well. So I guess the big things for England ladies at the moment, looking for eventually who will replace Brunt and who will replace Shrubsole. Of course, they've got Cross, but Cross isn't exactly the youngest player as well. So it's a really exciting time for these, I guess, younger seam bowlers across the domestic setup. And at the Vipers, I get to watch Tara Norris and Lauren Bell, and those two are really exciting. Tara Norris is going off to play for America, the American women's team. That's just absolutely crazy to me. So yeah, there's definitely a few I'll pick through, but Charlie Dean, I'm so excited they brought her up, because they've been looking for a genuine off spinner for so long, and the amount of turn and bounce she generates. I remember her bowling at me in the GS Bowl nursery, and she went and got so much bounce it went and winded me, and I was lying on the floor for probably about 4 minutes. She bowls quite quick. She gets so much turn, and I think I would rather face Catherine Brunt than Charlie Dean, out of pure fear of the spin.
That's quite an endorsement, really. So yeah, definitely some good stuff to look out for there. In terms of just in cricket in the women's game in general, this summer has been quite crazy in terms of the 100. What was your take on the 100? That was quite controversial before it got going, and then I think a lot of people seem to get behind it. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a positive thing, or are you more sceptical?
I'm definitely more positive than a few of my county commentator colleagues around at the other countries. I think there was quite a few. Obviously, you did see the pessimism, but I guess it's just the separate women's and men's need to look at separately. In terms of men's, I thought it was, brilliant, exciting, provided good entertainment. I do think it got a lot of new people into the game, but they've got to sort out the scheduling problems, because the fact that the Royal London was being played with almost second 11 teams for some counties, it's not right. We're literally the world champions of the 50 over format. We need to be putting more time and investment into that. And I've seen quite a few people drafting what their season should look like. And I think in that respect, there's a lot for the ECB to work out, as well as just considering making sure a lot of the players don't get injured, because so many people have got injured. There's been, quite, I'd say, an abnormal amount of retirements. You've just got to, I guess, balance the playing and stuff. But looking at the women's as a separate thing, I can think of nothing negative whatsoever. But I guess a big factor of that is that in the women's setup, there's no particularly strong county affiliations. But since the creation of the KSL, it has been a franchise setup, and most women's supporters will have a franchise they feel quite passionate about. So for them, they've been able to bring in supporters. There's not that much of a difficulty between the county stuff and the domestic stuff. But I mean, I went to, I think, 3 or 4 games in the end, and some of the crowds for the women's game to begin with, I've never seen crowds like that before. And actually, I've been speaking to a few of my friends who have been playing the same amount of time as me, and it almost makes us quite emotional in the sense that in our, in the next 10 years, we've never expected this to happen. That there is, if you're a girl cricketer, you can make a career out of playing cricket, and you don't have to play for England. It's absolutely crazy to me, and it's really affirming to know that young girls can now pursue that as a career, and it will only get better and better, as I think they're planning on handing out more domestic contracts. So that's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, it was brilliant, and now a few more women's players have become household names. I mean, the game I went to at Canterbury was such a good crowd in, even for late September. And I think people are just, being really supportive of the women's game. They've seen what the girls can do now. And I guess it's just coming to that point of, right, I think you can't, it's hard to explain. It's good to make progress, but I think you can't ask for too much at once. What the 100 has achieved this year has definitely ticked off a small amount, but there's things that have got to be done on both sides. There needs to be, for example, more televised women's games. There needs to be more money put into their training, their coaching, everything. But ultimately, the players as well now, if they want to be given the same platform and stand as the men, the fielding, for example, that's got to get better. The running between the wickets has got to get better. And both sides have a part to play in just elevating women, so hopefully somewhere near the men's game. I mean, it's crazy how much has happened in the last 5 years and how much could happen in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and that's right. And I think that there's huge potential. It's really exciting. And I think one of the really positive things that we saw from the 100 was the fact that there was televised women's cricket on terrestrial TV, and it was live on BBC Two, with breaking all kinds of records in terms of viewers. And I don't know about you, but my phone was blowing up on that first game, because it started, the very first game of the 100 was the women's game, and it was a really exciting game. And there were people who I've never spoken to about cricket, but they obviously know I like it. They have no interest in it, and they would text me like, "Oh, I get it. This is really good." And it was a really positive thing. And I think that's what you've got to try and build on for the momentum. For next season, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I spoke about those players who some of the girls at university joined, mainly for the social aspect more than the cricket, but they were messaging our group chat going, this is the first time I've properly understood the rules. I am there going, I've been trying to explain the rules to you for 2 years, but it's great. I mean, having just the very simple equation of how many runs, how many balls, it was good, and it was good to see a lot of the girls I know going, this is exciting. I mean, I think I had one of my housemates who I lived with her for a whole year. She never expressed really much interest in cricket whatsoever. I got a message from her when I was watching the 100 of the final going, this is good, isn't it? I can't wait to see, Jordan bowl in the final. And I was like, hang on a second, what? This is absolutely mental. So as you say, it's just brought so many, I think it has been, there's issues to address, but it's overwhelmingly been a success.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. I am going to let you go at some point very shortly, but I've got a couple of questions for you. I guess if you were in charge of the ECB, if you could do anything, you had carte blanche, full power to do whatever you wanted. What's the biggest change that you would like to see, particularly for the women's game, but in cricket in general, but particularly for the women's game? That's a big question.
Yeah, this is the one to put me on the spot. Goodness. I mean, focusing with, my first thing for the men's, all of that scheduling problems, sorting that out. Rearrange a tour to Pakistan would be lovely. I really need some cricket in that time, but I guess I would work on conciliation with the counties, think how we can make them feel comfortable with the new format would be good. For the women's, it's just got to be, let's just get them some more fixtures and test match fixtures. There is not a single women's player, I think, who you would speak to and say they want to play test matches. I think there was a crazy statistic that the New Zealand ladies, the White Ferns, the last time they played a test, even Susie Bates and Sophie Devine weren't playing in it. So their entire cricketing careers, I think they're in their 30s maybe now, they have never played a test match. And of course the India-Australia match going on at the moment, we had the India-England one early in the season. It's exciting, and a lot of the female players want to play red ball cricket, so that would be something I think I'll be looking more towards, and hopefully encouraging a bit more, and just more fixtures. I think one more thing I would probably add as well is that obviously in the women's now, counties have become a bit obsolete. So you've got these domestic setups, the Vipers, the Thunder, the Storm, all of that. And then you have club cricket. I think one thing they've just got to cater for is allowing a transition from club cricket into domestic structures if you're not already in it. Because a lot of the girls from the counties, half of them have gone into these domestic setups, half of them have gone back down to club. And suddenly for example, myself, I've gone down to club, and suddenly you find yourself not training. You were training 3 times a week, and now you're not training. You're just playing on Sundays. There's not proper warm-ups most of the time. There's some pretty dodgy pitches you're playing on, and it feels almost impossible. Even, let's say, me, I'm only 21, and I'm going, there's no chance of me ever being able to get back in that setup. So, there's been a few people proposing what can be done, but I just think some transparency between, if a player, for example, did get into a domestic setup and then got moved back down to club, is there a way for her to get back up? And I think Tash Farrant's a really good example of that, because she obviously got called up to England, then got dropped from the squad for a few years, went back to club and county and kind of reconciliated, and now she's back in the England squad. That's brilliant, and I think that's a true success story. But there's got to be a way to make sure that, if you get into the domestic setup and one of these regional teams at age 14 and you keep progressing up, there's got to be some help for the club cricketers going on the side. But I could be biased as a club cricketer.
Nothing wrong with that at all. And did say I was going to let you go, but I think there's a few things I definitely want to pick up on there, and I absolutely could keep you talking all day, and I'll try not to. But absolutely on the women's test side of things, I don't understand why there aren't more women's test matches out there. I think the world is crying out for that now, and there's some really shocking statistics out there. And as you said, the Australia-India test that's ongoing at the moment, I think it's something like 20 odd years or something since Australia played a test that wasn't against England, and it's absolute madness. So definitely fully behind you on the campaign for that one. And for me, I love all forms of cricket, but Test match cricket is the pinnacle of where we want to get to, and to have women playing that is absolutely where we have the quality of players there as well. So there's no reason why we shouldn't. So definitely want to get on that. And it's really interesting what you're saying about the structures and the trying to work sort of back in and that. And I guess that's a sort of one area. So you're obviously in club cricket at the moment. Is that your ambition? Do you want to try and get to that next step and into the sort of the franchise world, or are you looking at other options? Yeah, what's your plan with that? Because it is a really difficult structure at the moment, and yeah.
I think probably if you'd asked about 19-year-old Melissa, just as I had a stress fracture in 2018. Completely had to play no cricket for over the winter, didn't train or anything. And when I felt like I got back into it, I felt I was a bit behind the ball game, and then suddenly you're out of the system and you're back into club cricket with not as much support. So yeah, I guess just a more transparent route for these structures to actually look at the performance of someone in the club season and not be so rigid with their selection. You know, if someone's had a really good season for club cricket, bring them into the fold for that next season. Even if you don't play them for a game, let them experience what it's like within that more professional setup. And actually, you might be surprised that someone you could never have expected or been on the radar would suddenly, with the right training and support and facilities, has the potential to become a really good player. And I mean, I think Jake Lintop, that's a perfect example in the men's game of someone who, you know, thought that his career kind of was over in that respect. Mainly had gone back for teaching and playing for minor counties in a sense, and now he's Warwickshire 100 finalist and playing in the Caribbean Premier League. So for, I guess, in women's and men's, you know, these squads can't be 100% rigid. It's got to be holding players accountable with their central contracts. If they're not performing, reconsider it. Bringing someone fresh, bringing someone new can just take a chance on new players, because I know a lot of girls I play against in our Premier League for club, they are really good, and you know, some people should be given a chance. But I think on a personal note, I think my time has probably passed in that respect. But playing for my club, you know, brings me that fun which I'm looking for. The social aspect of it especially, and the challenges of captaining. It's a really good standard. It ticks all my boxes, and now I guess my focus is a bit more on the broadcasting side and slowly learning out how to do law at university.
Well, you've sort of hinted potentially there might be more broadcasting, potentially more TMS things coming up for you in future, hopefully. If again, I'm going to give you full power of the word there. You can commentate on any match in the world. What would be your pick of the match that you would ultimately want to commentate on?
Ashes. It's got to be the Ashes. I mean, I was going to say actually how much I love the women's multi-format kind of thing, and I think every women's tour should have the same sense of 5 ODIs and T20s and a test. I mean, men's Ashes as well. That'd be absolutely wonderful. Not quite sure I'm there yet, but yeah, I'm obsessed with all the Ashes series. I mean, I used to pretend to be ill, and so I could skip off school and watch the 2005 box set, which I was only 5 when it happened. But for some reason, I could memorise and tell you every single bowling, who was bowling, who won what test. So yeah, it's got to be the Ashes.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely has. Terrifying that you were only 5 when that happened, but I'm going to try and move on past that before I get too stressed out by how old I am now and watching that. But yeah, absolutely, no, that's fantastic, and thank you for giving me so much of your time to talk about cricket, which is the favourite thing that I have to do on a daily basis. So thank you for that. It's been really good of you to join me and to talk all things cricket, and hopefully do stay in touch, and we will potentially get you back on another time.
That would be wonderful. Thank you for talking.
No worries. Thank you. And now we have it. What a lovely, lovely person. She is amazing. Possibly I know she said that Alex Hartley is the nicest person in cricket there. I genuinely think she is up there with that title. She is just so lovely. We got talking all things cricket. I genuinely could have stayed chatting to her for hours and hours and hours. And yeah, she's just got some really interesting thoughts about cricket, you know, fan of the 100 as well, which we have definitely been converted into as well, thinking that, you know, that's doing great things for women's cricket. And, you know, women's cricket is just growing massively, as she said there about her university team, which is, you know, grown massively over the last couple of years and stuff, that women's cricket is growing hugely, and yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years.
I hope so. And yeah, I think there's a lot of latecomers to the 100, but I think this just goes to show you can hear the kind of passion and stuff like that it's all looking on the up. And as we come to the next season, the end of this season, hopefully next year we see some more exciting games.
Yeah, and really, really interesting stuff she was talking about there with the TMS and the commentary and how she got into that. And I mean, can you imagine, like, you're 21 years old and you're broadcasting to the nation on an international women's cricket game? I mean, I can't imagine the nerves there. That's just absolutely nuts. And yeah, but she did it, and I was listening to that game was listening to her commentary on the game, and we knew we had this interview coming up. I thought, to be honest, by that point, I thought she's going to be way too big for us now. She's never going to come and talk to us at this point. But I'm really pleased that she did. But she is just such a pro at doing that, and yeah, it's phenomenal at 21 to world is her oyster very much.
Definitely a very, very bright young lady in the cricketing world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's probably it for now for us. But we have got a bit of fun moving forward. We're going to be more organised. We're going to be more regular. That sounds unfortunate. We're going to be recording more regularly. There we are. That's better for us. We're going to be back. We're going to try and aim for every 2 weeks. And, in a classic wrong end of the stick style, we've missed most of the summer because, when all the cricket's happening, and we're now going to start recording regularly when the season's pretty much over. So, that seems
lots of international cricket, though, for you.
There is lots of international cricket. There's no... England aren't going to Pakistan as they plan to, which is unfortunate, but never mind. Next time. But let's just hope the Ashes happens, eh? That's the big one.
That's the big one.
I know there's lots of talk about that and COVID in Australia and lockdowns and families going and all kinds of stuff, but we'll get into that in a couple of weeks when we start hoping to look forward to the Ashes and see what's coming up.
Yes, hopefully a few people are out and back from injury, and hopefully we can have a bit of a reshuffle or a bit of an energized team going into the autumn and winter for the Ashes. But lots of good stuff to look forward to hearing, and hopefully our new plan of attack will actually be, applying a little bit of... We can be organised. I was just going to put that out there. Sometimes we do plan.
Sometimes we do. It's a rare event. It's a bit like it's a bit like a solar eclipse. You don't see it often. When you do, it's really spectacular. So
it is. Yes, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, that's how much we plan. Yeah, so we're gonna try. We're gonna be focused and on it in the coming weeks. And if you don't see another podcast from us for another month or so, you'll know it failed miserably. So, dear. But yes, we're going to take our inspiration from Melissa, and we're going to try and be organised and on it and talking to you guys a lot more. So if you have got any thoughts or comments, if you would like to get in touch with us, please do so. We are on Twitter at Wrong End Podcast. We are also on Instagram at Wrong End Podcast, or you can email us wrongendofthestick@hotmail.com. If you would also like to follow Melissa on Twitter, she is relatively active on Twitter, and she is Melissa G Story, Story, on Twitter as well. So do go and give her a follow as well. I mean, she's already got tons more followers than we have, obviously. And if you want to follow someone on Twitter who knows what they're talking about cricket, she is definitely the person to go to. So
yes,
follow her meteoric rise and taking over the world of cricket commentary.
Awesome stuff. Well, sounds really good. I hope everyone enjoys the interview with Jonathan and Melissa, and we will see you in a couple of weeks for episode 70.
Yeah, but creeping ever closer to that century.
Ever closer. It's always going to be. It was always going to be a slow one, us getting to a century, but we'll get there.
I mean, it seemed unlikely that it was ever going to happen, but you never know. We'll get there. We'll get there. Right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. Do get in touch with us, and stay safe. And see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.